Now, I know we are studying the Civil War, but I need to go back to the Revolutionary War so we can put some context to the Civil War. And I found connecting history is very useful in people's overall understanding and appreciation of it. And this is one of my favorite parts of the Declaration of Independence because it brings about the complexity of our society and why our society is so unstable just by its nature. The Declaration of Independence, most famous lines, that we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter it or to abolish it. When a long train of abuses and usurpations pursue invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under the absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide a new guard for their future scrutiny. Now, what does that say about slavery? When Nat Turner's rebellion happened, when Denmark Vesey's rebellion, when different John Brown, William Lloyd Garrison, when these abolitionists, when these escaped slaves from bondage like Frederick Douglass, were these people breaking the law? Should they have been treated as criminals? If we are under this Constitution, was January 6th illegal? Or was it the right of those people to do that? Was it the right of Black Lives Matter in the George Floyd protests? And how is it so many people can have such volatile feelings for protest and change in their attempt to conserve or protect America when there's nothing more American than that act? So now we have this balance. Where does chaos start and protest end? But that is why our society is constantly at odds, because everyone has the right to fight for right, per the document. But that means that there is always somebody against right, because think about this. There were people fighting against slavery. The black people were. The white people weren't. But in the Civil War, we're talking about the black people were fighting for their freedom. The people invested in slavery, the planter class and the plantation owners of the South, were fighting for their right to do business the way they saw fit. So it's two people having converging rights. I have the right to own other people. That's the mindset of this group. I have the right to own my own labor. Now we have to fight. But when it's presented in that perspective, that you're taking a right from me either way, it has to be a fight. As opposed to, the simple answer is, oh, this is just a hateful people and they just were hateful. Economics is the father of racism, not the child. When Christopher Columbus came onto the shore of the Bahamas or Jamaica or wherever the heck he was in the Caribbean, he had no problem with the indigenous people. He wanted what they had. Wow, we can make money here. They can make good slaves for us. Because that's what he was doing in February 1862. He was on the west coast of Africa trying to get into the slave trade. Not 1862, I'm sorry. 1492. 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue with the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. And the Nina, which was the navigation ship, was navigated by African men, the Niños brothers. So there would not have been a Spaniard discovery of the Western world, but it were not for Africans. Different study. We're going back too far. But I wanted to bring that out, that it is designed for the U.S. to have the volatile community that we have. It says here, when Thomas Jefferson penned those words, he owned hundreds of enslaved people. So now we're not just talking about converging differences amongst people, but there are psychological converging differences within people. I think 12 of the first 16 presidents owned slaves. So you have people erecting a nation based on the principle of freedom, that own slaves. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, they own slaves. All of them, all the presidents. So the formation of this country, the foundation of this country, came out of the slavocracy, literally, because the president is making the laws and he's making the treaties. They're setting the national reputation. The international politics of this country was from people who owned other people. But they were basing what they were doing in a cloak of freedom. So now, this is not just a battle of people. This is a battle of the consciousness now. And you say, well, no, it wasn't a battle if they had slaves. Wrong. This is what Thomas Jefferson wrote. Even God, he later claimed, would likely side with the enslaved people if they organized in a successful revolt against the enslavers. Now, this is in Notes on the State of Virginia. I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just, and his justice cannot sleep forever. That considering numbers, nature, and natural means only, a revolution of the wheel of fortune, an exchange of situation is among possible events, that it may become probable by supernatural interference. So he's saying, I know this is not right, but I believe in karma. I'm getting away with it, so I'm gonna ride this out as long as I can. But how long can this last? So I'm not just saying, oh, this is what I think. This primary sources. Okay, again, we're still sticking with our primary sources. But the Civil War was a crescendo of the foundation as it was set. It was set for disagreement. So now when you end up with today, insurrection, fear politics on both sides. Oh, he's the most terrible thing in the world. You got to vote for me or he's going to end the world. Now, the guy been president before. And, you know, it was what it was. Oh, I want the black vote. I ain't never did nothing for black people before. But I'm your best case. I'm going to say we got to save the country. We have had slave owners. We had people who were famous for genocide as presidents of this country. And that did not break this country. That's what this country is. It's not all it is, but that's what this country is. That's not going to hurt this country. A racist leader is going to... We had slave owners as president, really? And is it smart to vote for somebody just for pigmentation and genitalia? But that was what I wanted to point out, that if even in the primary sources, the things that are happening in this country are not by, they're not by design, but they're by structure. If everybody has the right for pursuit of happiness, we now have to decide, we have to define what happiness is.